So welcome everybody to today's session, which is Autopilot for Everyone series. This is part 2. I'm Diana Gray. I'm the Community Marketing Manager for UiPath. And today with us, we have Alina Capota. Alina is
Yes, hello.
You want to introduce yourself, Alina?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. I'm a senior manager here in UiPath in the Technology Services department. And I've been with UiPath for the past 6 years. And in the last 1 year and some months, I've been deep diving into Autopilot for Everyone, been helping building this product and enhancing it with out-of-the-box tools.
Great. And then we also have Russel Alfeche today, who's a technology leader with qBotica, as well as one of our UiPath MVPs for America.
Yep, thanks, Diana. And yep, hi everyone. I'm Russel Alfeche. So we did the session 1 previously, and so I am from qBotica, leading the technical services for our delivery team for UiPath globally. I was ex UiPath as well, so from 2018 to 2022, and then I moved here and joined the qBotica as a platinum partner. So, nice to meet you, everyone.
Thank you. So if you want to go to the next slide, Alina. Yeah, Russell, do you want to go through the agenda?
Sure, I can go through agenda real quick. So we will do first a session recap for those who are not able to attend the first session. We'll do a quick recap, and then we'll go directly to hands-on, how you can build, showing you how you can build your own tools or automations for Autopilot, and what are the templates you can use. And also, as we go along, we will be showing you development and deploying best practices. And if you have time then, let's do a Q&A.
Sounds good. Thanks, Russell. Let's start with the quick recap. And before we dive in, I just wanted to position Autopilot for Everyone in the context of our other Autopilots. If you missed the first session and if you don't remember, we have multiple flavors of Autopilots. We have Autopilot for developers who can help with creating automation. So basically, you provide a prompt and it will generate the automation that can solve the request. We have Autopilot for testers that can generate test cases definition and can later on be automated with Autopilot for devs, and then Autopilot for everyone, which is able to complete daily tasks using AI and automation. Now, these ones are mostly GA, except for the business analyst, which is in the private preview. Of course, Autopilot for Everyone is different from the other AI assistants because we are working across all the apps. So we are able to integrate Autopilot for Everyone into, for example, Slack, Workday, SAP, and so on. It learns how you work and it can customize workflows for you, workflows in the sense of conversational workflow. It can assist with the end-to-end workflows. It can process documents with ease. We have built-in document understanding. It can automate all kinds of tasks, and it is supported on multiple platforms. We have an integrations with Copilot as well. Now, regarding our agentic vision, we are having some tools, and our agents are using these tools in order to be able to basically solve an end-to-end scenarios. If we are looking a bit at this slide, we will be able to see the fact that the user provides a prompt that will help the user reach to a certain goal or objective. Then we have the agents that can understand that, and they have access to the tools which can run actions. Actions are UiPath automations. If agents don't have the right information, they will also escalate. The agents are able to understand the goal or the objective that we want to reach, and they are able to create an execution flow or agentic loop, as we call it, in which they can assess the set of tools that they will need to access in order to perform this task. Okay, now moving on, Autopilot for Everyone is the conversational agent that we are promoting as, like your go-to personal assistant. We have the user that can ask questions. You can also drag and drop documents. Autopilot will be able to interpret your intent. It will digest the files or any information that you give. It will perform the steps, and it will generate a response. Autopilot is hosted in Assistant. It has access to automations that are pre-built, context grounding, clipboard AI as well, and it uses Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Okay, that was it from my end. Last session, we discussed about how we can install Autopilot. And if you don't remember, I just wanted to show you quickly how to do that. If you go in the admin tab, you have the AI trust layer, and in Autopilot for everyone, you'll have to select the tenant and perform the installation. And of course, you can add more automations. If you go to Marketplace, there is a dedicated collection in which you can enhance your capabilities in Autopilot for everyone. Okay, I think that would be pretty much on the last session overview. Russell, do you want to take over and let's deep dive into how to build our own tools?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that awesome recap, Alina. So yes, I can share my screen right now. Yeah. Okay. So now that you have installed Autopilot and you have provided it the tools or automations that it has access to, what if you came to a point where, let's say, yesterday we had an example around scheduling interview appointments. So it knows that it needs to use this tool. It looks at the SharePoint, so it has access to SharePoint. As you can see here, these are the tools or automations that it has access to out of the box once you install the marketplace component. So it has SharePoint, Outlook, and all that good stuff for productivity, for sales, for engineering. So that's all available, right? But what if you encounter, let's say, a use case that or a task that you want it to do, but it cannot do because it doesn't have access to those automations, right? So if it doesn't have, so an agent which doesn't have access to a tool is useless, right? It's just a chatbot. Let's say you can just converse with it, but it can do nothing without its tools, right? So let's say I have to do a report coming from SAP. Let's say I wanna hey, can you fetch me top accounts from SAP and send it to me as a summary report? So it will try to look at all its available tools that it has access to. And one of the SAP uh, tools that it has access to is sales order. But this is not what I want. I want it to fetch accounts, right? Right now, it doesn't have that tool yet. And that's what we're trying to build. And what I want to show you is it's not that complex building tools for autopilot because it's not like building an end-to-end workflow, right? When dealing with automations that you want autopilot to leverage, these are very, very small automations. And we provide these tools so that autopilot can decide, hey, I have access to this tool, and based on on my prompt, it will use this tool. So these are small chunks of automations, not end-to-end automation, right? So but right now it doesn't have access to the accounts object in SAP. So that's the tool that we will be building and will be deploying and providing it, right? So that's what we'll do now. So there are two ways you can create automations, right? Just like how you build typical automations in UiPath. It's either via Studio Web or Studio, right? So let's go with the Studio Web approach for this example. And then the next example will go over to a Studio template. So we'll go to Studio. And our goal is to provide Autopilot the capability to fetch SAP accounts. Right? I'll create a new project here, and so in here I'll use so one of the best practices is, since this is a um assistant, a conversational assistant or an agent, um if the ideal way or the ideal approach when building an automation or tool for autopilot is through API, right? Unless you don't have a way to connect to an API um, for the automation, then you can go by the UI approach. But ideally, the tools that you provide to autopilot um, should be through API, right? So in this case, I already have in my integration service, we have connectors that we have for S4 Cloud, S4 HANA Cloud. So that's the one that I'll be using. So this is the custom connector that I'll be using. So what I'll do is leave account. Oops. This one. This one. So this is the SAP connection, and I just need to retrieve the accounts. And so that's it, right? So this is the main thing that this is, again, this is not an end-to-end automation that I'm going to build, because I will let Autopilot to decide by providing this tool when or how to use it, right? And Autopilot will determine based on a couple of things. One is, of course, the title. I mean, once you publish it, the name of the automation. So that's one. And later, once we publish it, I'll show you a few things how you can provide more specific description on this project. And another thing is, in your tools, in the tools that you provide, let's say, so this particular tool, Fetch SAP Sales Order, there you can provide parameters, right? So these are the arguments that you provide in the automation that Autopilot will look at and identify if, based on your prompt, right, it will automatically identify it if it can infer these parameters once it executes it, right? So let's say for the Fetch order, right? So if you notice here in the first prompt, I didn't provide anything, and it doesn't have it's not really related to the accounts. But let's say like, can you fetch SO, let's say 5731 in SAP via UI? So by just this prompt, it's able to determine that the parameter that it will use is like sales order number, and it was able to infer that this is the sales order number and it is via UI. right? So it's not like running an attended robot, although it feels like it, but when running attended robot, you are the ones that provides the parameters manually. But in here, you just give it the tools, you describe the parameters as descriptive as possible, like sales order number, purchase order date, and then you describe the automation as descriptive as possible. That's how it will determine that this is the tool that it's going to use, and this is the parameters that it's going to feed it, right? So these are a few things, key things to keep in mind when building your automations for Autopilot. Your naming should be descriptive, naming in your arguments, and naming in your um, project is as descriptive as possible. So it could be able to identify how it will map your prompt into the input parameters, right? So that's the same thing that we'll be doing here. Um, uh, in this case, I'll just retrieve the account list, right? And output it. Uh, in fact, I'll just do this. So so I just need to provide an output argument. So our output argument with the result message, or if so result message, whatever is in the result message output, so it will understand it, and you can in here, just to make it the example much simpler, I'll output the result message as text, right? And I'll create that, and then I'll assign. I don't really have to provide any input parameters here, uh, but I will show you how Autopilot can understand whatever output that you have feed it from the process. It will be able to understand that and be able to present it beautifully as an output in the assistant. So in this case, this lists all records. The output of this is, let me just show you quickly. So this is the output of the list all records, right? Another good thing about Autopilot is you don't even have to like beautify or in your workflow, you don't even have to post process this output, right? You can give this output directly as an output for Autopilot, which is what I'll do right now. So I will just assign this here. Uh, Probably I'll ask. This is another Autopilot for developer. So if I don't know the syntax, how to serialize list out the output, I'll just do this. So this is Autopilot for developer. Serialize retrieve account list. So serialize retrieve account list meaning I want to convert in a string. So this one, so this is the serialized meaning text. So this one, how it looks like is this one, right? This is the raw output from the JSON output string from the JSON, right? So that's it. So I use the API, SAP API, to list all records, and then I provide that to Autopilot in the form of result message in the raw JSON format, right? And that's it. Let me just publish it. Let me rename this first. How do I rename? Publish. Okay. It from SAP. So again, um, descriptive automation, and then you have the option to uh, push it into your personal workspace or any other workspace or any other folders in your tenant. So it's just a matter. So if you push it in your personal workspace, you are the only one who your autopilot will be the only one who has access to this tool. If you push it into the custom folder, then whoever has access to this folder will also have access to this tool. Just like how the attended robot or the attended users has access to each of these different tenant, right? So I'll just push it in my personal workspace feed so that I'm the only, my autopilot will be the only one who has access to this for now. So I'll publish it, and that's, yeah, that's how you deploy your first automation for autopilot. And just need to make sure that, so one main thing, or probably two main thing that you need to do after publishing. I think you can do it from here. I should have done it from here, but so the way autopilot identify if an automation is a tool. I mean, if the automation is something that it can call as a tool, is this label, right? If it doesn't have the autopilot label, then it's not something that you can see in this. You cannot see it here. You can see it here, or you cannot see it here if it doesn't have the autopilot label. So what I'll do first thing I'll do is edit, or you can do it from Studio or Studio Web itself. You can add label and then say autopilot. So that's a main thing. Okay. And next thing, which is a bit optional, is make sure that in the admin, your autopilot admin can provide a more fitting description, a more specific description. So go to your tenant where you have autopilot installed, and then in the automation properties, you select the orchestrator folder, in this case, in my personal workspace. Again, this is optional. Based on my experience, after if I deploy a tool, I publish it, and then I provide a label. If that automation is named properly, and I have the proper very descriptive, it can be able to call it. But that's why this is optional. So this is where you can do the settings specific for this tool, right? You can refine the description so that autopilot will have a higher chance of understanding when to use this, right? So this tool retrieves account in SAP. That's it. So just provide the description. But again, even if you don't put this, based on my experience, as long as this is descriptive, it will be able to know that this tool is being used to fetch account from SAP, right? And then, of course, this is enabled for autopilot. I tag this as autopilot, and you can save the changes. And then now it's ready. So you now have your created your tool for autopilot. All I need to do is refresh this. Oops. I think it's in the automations. Okay, so now it's there. Fetch accounts from SAP. Now, when I do the same prompt that I had before, and remember, this automation outputs raw JSON, but in here, let me just put this no, anyways, I'll just put this here and see what the output from autopilot looks like. Oops, hold on. That's not what I expect. Okay, that's yeah, because that's how I described it. But anyways, it's getting confused with other automations that are described similarly. So there you go. So instead of outputting raw JSON, which I have provided in the automation, it actually understands the output, even if it's in a raw JSON or JSON array format. It presents it much more beautifully, and I can even ask, can you please make this in a tabular format and send it as a summary report to, let's say, to me. So since it has access to Outlook tools, I would expect that it will use the Outlook uh, automations or Gmail. My Outlook is disabled probably. Then yeah, so you get the point, right? So whichever tool is enabled, right? Then it knows it plan it, as you can see here. It's an agent because it can plan the sequence of action and then prepare an email and then send that email, right? So another thing you can do here, since this is structured, is if you notice here, you can paste it anywhere. So it uses clipboard AI. So even if you don't have a UI automation, let's say you want to paste it in an entry data entry form in this page, you can just click this and then it will paste this using clipboard AI. So it has direct integration with clipboard AI. Or you can just paste it in Excel directly. Or, yep. So this is very powerful. You don't even have to build a UI automation to do the data entry once it is in this form. So, right, so that's how easy to create a tool for Autopilot and deploy it. So it's mainly, again, be as descriptive on the name of your automation and also the parameters that you set with Autopilot as descriptive as possible. In this case, I didn't provide any input parameters, but I could provide, let's say, I want to have a filter on like maximum records, let's say. I can add maximum records here and then input as number and then create. And then let me publish this. And let me refresh this. Let me top one account in the city. See, so it is able to automatically just based on my prompt, it's able to automatically infer this new parameter. So it can be this one, or it can be date or purchase order number or whatever input parameter. Be as descriptive as possible, so it's easy for Autopilot to infer what to put in the that parameter. So great. Next thing I'm going to show you is so this is if you want to do it in Studio Web, you can do it here. But there's also a template that you can use in Studio. If you go to here, uh, pilot. So this is Autopilot automation template. Of course, created by Alina that we have her as well in the event. Thanks for creating this, Alina. So this
Sure.
is the one that yep, so much. This is the one that we use for when that uses a best practice when creating studio tools, autopilot tools in studio at automation. So how the template looks like is so this let's say if you don't have this, so all these are the ones that so these are the ones that I highlighted are the the behavior of the tools, but um the template is really more on the logging and also the exception handling, and so that autopilot can report it as well when any issues um occurred, right? So it knows that it will report back to autopilot that there's some issue, let's say with the connection, and this is the part where you provide your implementation, right? In this case, this particular workflow or tool that I created is interacting with hubs. I mean, retrieving HubSpot deals, and there are a couple of steps, right? Um, it retrieves the owners first. So it does an HTTP call and then retrieves all the owners. So it's paginated. So there's some logic there. And then if the owner is blank, is not blank, then it will do this, and then it will use that to retrieve the deals. And if it has results, it will show it and show the stages as well in the pipeline. So not only the deals, but also the relevant owner and the pipeline and stages. So it will consolidate all of that and then output autopilot with a JSON array, right? So previously I just output on the previous example, I just output a text JSON string, which is also convert JSON array to string. But this one, you can just output a raw JSON array, right? And also the differences here is I have the different input parameter, right? So if I ask autopilot, can you retrieve deals from hotspot with the specific description and close one stage, right? It will be able to identify that uh, this is the deal description, and it will identify the stage, and if I specify an owner, it will put there as well. And uh, just to show that example, we deals fetch deals from HubSpot uh, assigned to Michelle, uh, which recently closed one. So It automatically executed. It didn't prompt me the same way that it prompted this one here. And you can do this if you set the, so this one, if you remember here, you can have this behavior if you check this box, set as pre-response action. So that means before autopilot responds, it will execute the process immediately and give you the result, right? So it won't confirm the parameters that it infers. So if this is unchecked, then it will confirm for you to run to it will confirm it will show the what you call the card, the automation card, and then you click run once you confirm the parameters. But if this is checked, then it will run it immediately. It's like here. And yeah, so that's so as you can see here, it provided the results. And yeah, so it just inferred the parameter and then provided the results right here immediately. So it didn't ask me to run. It didn't ask me to verify the parameters. It just went directly and ran it. So that's the difference between set as pre-response action and not a pre-response action. So what else? So again, be as descriptive. Let me show you for what that looks like. This particular one. Mm, So as you can see, it's set as pre-response action. So that's why it immediately run the automation. So if it identify multiple automation that it needs to run, and all of them are pre-response action, then it will just go directly and run those automations sequentially. Whether it's one automation, two automation, three automation, so it will run it sequentially. And this is how I configured the input parameters. Yeah, I could just leave it blank here, or just to make it much better in mapping the parameters, I just provided a description. So as you can see here, it's blank, right? This one is blank, but still it's still able to identify that Michelle is the deal owner. So yeah, is there any questions at this point? Or probably Alina, if there's anything you want to add in terms of best practices.
Yeah, actually, I would like to, let me quickly share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, I think you need to stop sharing. Okay, perfect. Okay, can you see my screen? All good?
Yes, you can see your screen.
Perfect. So I would advise everyone, if you want to build automations, to go on our official documentation. You have here the Autopilot for Everyone admin guide, and then you have the automation properties information. And you are also having information about how to manage automation properties, the argument level properties, and so on. That would be all in terms of the automation properties. I think you explained it really, really well, Russell, as well. Just want to touch on something. So if you go to the tenant that you have configured, my advice would be so that, for example, Autopilot knows how to work with data types and also with different input fields to also specified what we are expecting to get from the user. Also, you can add a description to the user that will just show in the automation card and the drop-down options if there are certain values that the user should select from. Okay, perfect. Now moving on to the automation's outputs. I think our documentation also captures that we should focus on strings essentially, also JSON array or JSON object. This is the data types that we are allowing Autopilot to have basically parsing. Okay, and there's also one that is very important, which is HTML. Okay, let's see how that would go. I will give it a prompt saying something. Let me just make sure I am on the right. Okay, I'm on the right tenant. And I will say something like fetch market rates from the for the loan. Application, show me a chart. Something like this. Okay, and now what Autopilot will do, it will recommend me an automation in which I have this data. As you can see here, this is fetching the market rates. And you will be able to see that it's able to load an iframe. Okay, that's very cool. That means that we are able to have visuals in our autopilot directly, right? Which is quite of a nice feature. So that also is a possibility to have basically an HTML that is returned by your automation.
Well,
Um,
that's very nice, Alina. And what should they follow? How should they name the output argument if they want to see something like this?
if they want to see something like this, the argument should be named output HTML.
Nice.
Yes. In this way, Autopilot will know that this is the HTML output that it needs to render in this way.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect. Another thing that I wanted to show you is one of the pre-built automations, the get events one, because I want to explain a bit how we have built this one. We have used, of course, the template that Russell had just shared with you, and we are checking the validity of the arguments. For example, if we check if the from time is greater than the until time, otherwise we throw the business an error specifying that um, the until time cannot be before the from time and so on, because we need to inform the user what was wrong whenever they run the automation. We have to make it as user friendly as possible. That's one of the best practices when building attended automations. Okay, then I build the result data table that I want to get. Okay. And then I perform the get Outlook events. I have here from time and until time. Okay. And there are also the time zone is always UTC because this is what Autopilot knows how to infer it. Okay, and also the subject contains. And then we are verifying if we have a value for the subject. And also we are limiting our returns because otherwise we are going to overflow the autopilot chat context. Okay, if we have some events, then we are saying that, okay, this is fine. We have returned the top events. Otherwise, we are getting the events that are between today minus 5 and today plus 5 days. This is the fallback mechanism. So in case you have no events returned, we are going to return some events for you, assuming this is what you are interested in. Okay, and then we offer some execution details to Autopilot stating that we haven't found any events returned with your um, search, but we are going to return this once. Okay, and this is what we call the fallback mechanism. Okay, if some events are returned, then that's okay. Otherwise, we are going to also return top -3 +3, because here we also had some filters. Okay, the subject contains. In this case, we don't have any filter. So basically, we kind of try to understand what the user wants from us in order to fulfill the user's request. And this is how we have built this automation, and it has this fallback mechanism. Then we are going for each of the event return to add the information. Looks something like this. Of course, we also have to check if there are any null values. Okay, and also we concatenated the time zone. Okay, and I would say that's pretty much it. Of course, we are converting this to a JSON array because the result message should be a JSON array. Okay, great. I just wanted to show everyone that you can build automations like this following some best practices while performing for attended, because we are working with users that won't necessarily know how to configure these automations. So we need to be prepared and have fallback mechanisms in place. Okay, great. Now let's focus on the questions.
Yeah, and there's although I've answered a few, but I wanna um like ask in the highlight a few questions that interesting
Sure.
ones. So let me know if the question is, what is the more cost-effective approach for us as is it one prompt consuming one AI units? Uh, uh, so how are the AI units or the named user allocation being consumed?
Yeah, so essentially people will be able to buy bundles of AI units, and also there are going to be some communications about what licensing we offer to actually allow people access our AI and agents products way easier in terms of pricing and licensing. So that is yet to come.
Okay. So is that like so I think follow-up question is, so is each prompt consuming AI unit or the actions consuming AI unit, meaning the
Each
response?
prompt,
Oh,
whenever you interact with the AI.
okay. So it's prompt, not the action. Let's say your prompt resulted in like three tools or three action or function calls or whatever, three responses. So that's only one AI unit consumption.
So essentially, whatever is AI interaction, that is going to be one AI unit, no matter if it ran three automations.
Oh, okay, okay. So yep, hope that answers your question, WJ. Um, but yeah. Another one is, can this be used as a customer facing?
Yes, with Autopilot for web. Once
Oh,
we have, yeah, we are going to have an Autopilot for web experience. We are building an SDK, and essentially you can take this and plug it into whatever interface you want to.
that's nice. That's nice to hear. So there's also a question around other languages besides English supported autopilot. Based on my experience, any language you can converse with it with any language. It will respond the same language that you converse with it.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
Oh yeah, but it's better to try it for yourself. It's really a great tool that you can use right now. Another question is regarding, although I answered this, but I'm not sure if I'm 100% sure on the answer. Um, Question is, can we add multiple automations under the same project? So my answer is yes, by creating entry points and creating separate process. But is that um,
Yes, but I'm not sure why you would want that, to be honest, because you have to have a description. I mean, you can have a description per process, but yeah, essentially you can technically, but I don't see why.
so I think for me, that is useful because let's say all my HubSpot related automations will be in one project. I don't have to like create a separate project for retrieve HubSpot deal, retrieve HubSpot account, retrieve HubSpot, um, something like that. So
Okay, I can share how we are structuring this for our solution. So I will share my screen. So essentially, we have a big repo in which we are keeping everything. And for example, for event, we have all these projects and they are basically in one place because I know they are for Outlook event. So yeah, I would say it's pretty straightforward like this. Okay, any other question?
anyone who wants to unmute and ask question, we have a few minutes left. So feel free to unmute and ask question if you have any.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe you can tell if AI is trained to help build coded workflows to work with actual code, because Autopilot that is currently in studio, as I noticed, is not really trained to build coded applications. It works great with visual activities, but when it goes to the code, it becomes a little bit stupid. So I'm interested in if it was properly trained for that purpose, or its main focus is on the visual activities.
So this is a very good question for Autopilot for developers. If we are going to have a session on that, I think that that should be the question asked. As far as I know, we are having a model that we fine-tuned to support multiple cases, mostly around the workflows, because the model is anyway good at generating code. But yeah, I would say we fine-tuned this model to support the visual, basically representation of the workflow. Not sure about the code per se. But yeah, that would be a good question for Autopilot for developers.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, there's another question in the chat. How does Autopilot recognizes which automation to run? Is it based on the name and the description of the robot? Yes, it is based on the name and of description of the process. In the event of an unexpected result, what can we do besides correcting our prompt? Anything we can do to improve the response? Well, you can add user notes. Of course, you can improve your prompt. Depends essentially on the use case.
Yep, absolutely. So that's why in the 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 mindset here is it's very important that you're as I keep repeating earlier, it's important to have a very descriptive automation, the title, the description, and the parameters. So that's how you can make sure that autopilot properly calls it. So if you notice earlier when I say fetch SAP account, it used the fetch SAP sales order. And then when I did like retrieve SAP account, then it was able to find that. But you can refine further your description of the automation, and that's how it will recognize it.
Great, thank you for answering those questions. Are there any last questions? Okay, and I just want to remind everybody that the recording will be available tomorrow. I put the URL on where you can find that. And I've also put the URL in the chat on the first session in case you need to review that or weren't able to attend, so you can see that as well. So Alina and Russell, thank you so much for the session today. I really appreciate this, and thank you everybody for joining. If there's any additional topics that you guys want to hear about this or anything else, please just let us know. We're always willing to put on another session for you and go through more information. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.